Safety, Counselor Watley.
Here.
Counselor Warburton. Counselor Jones.
Here.
Counselor Mills.
Here.
And Counselor Harden.
Here.
So one absent, you have a quorum.
So this time I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the reading and approval of minutes from the Public Safety Committee meeting on January 24th.
Someone.
Councilor Harden. Councilor Jones. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All
Was that
opposed,
Harden,
nay.
James?
Harden. That motion carries 4-0. All right, under old business, 03-12-21, request for consideration for specific enforcement option of the city of Homewood residential occupancy ordinance. Councilor Baldwin, we carried this item over last time. I did receive an update last week on this property from Chief Ross. They are working toward some enforcement options. However, it's not looking that great at the moment. Are you familiar with it? I'm trying to paraphrase the email, but I don't remember all the details.
It's basically in the complainant's court. It's on everything we can do.
Sure.
Sort of thing. So
Without
we've exhausted. You've asked the person to actually fill out a report and make a legal complaint. And he's as of now not wanting.
Yeah, I saw his last email was asking. I think there might have been a little bit of confusion. I'm sorry. That's something about that was sudden. There might have been a little bit of confusion about on his part about what was needing to be done. So I think maybe we need to clarify that to him. And I can do that. So I'll email him this week.
You need help with that.
Sure.
We can't be the only community that has this issue. And I was thinking about it for some reason this morning. You know, if you start having this in a neighborhood, it really tears down the neighborhood over time. And I'm just wondering if some other community somewhere in the country that's had to dealt with this without a good solution. You know, the biggest issue is we just can't prove who's there.
Legally can't go in there without a just probable cause.
Yeah.
And find and identify. Going room to room, who's living in that.
Yeah.
We've sat on that house, we looked at things. Talked to the sanitation guys, you know, hey, is there any exorbitant amount of this going, you know, nothing. Not saying it's not happening, it's just we can't.
Were we able to issue, one of the things that we discussed, and you might not have been here, so you might not know about this, but one of the items we discussed in the committee meeting was issuing a notice of complaint to the residents, because a lot of times, one of the things that is probably a likely issue is the people that are living there probably don't know that we have an ordinance and that they're in violation of our ordinance.
I believe the owner was reached out to
Okay.
in this instance. And I know we've run into that before.
We talked about
Many of them
issuing.
are absentee owners.
Okay,
Obviously, you know, they just get the check and, you know, they don't care
sure.
one way or the other.
This landlord definitely does not care.
And that is the case with this one.
But
I'm at wit's end. I mean, obviously.
So are you saying serve something to the
yeah, 'cause
occupants?
what-
not the owner?
we obviously opened the channel of communication down path A,
Yes.
and it's not working. You know, so when I come running from the side, we cause a headache for him from his tenant. Because when a uniformed officer shows up and hands them something, or there's a folded up sheet of paper that says, "We're watching you," whatever. I mean,
You know,
it drives the message that you're in violation of our ordinance, and they may not know that, and then they go to the landlord and go, "Hey, you didn't tell us that, you know, 5 of us couldn't live here." Especially if you're a college student and then you receive that, that may scare you off, because it's not, you know, we have a variety of these types of issues, college students, but one of them sometimes
the
is,
city can send them any kind of letter. The occupants of the place. And I honestly, you know, the city Homewood on it, you know, possibly coming from the city attorney or mayor or whatever. I mean, we can go hand deliver it to, or whichever which way. It's just,
I'm just trying to find ways to,
it just depends. You know, you could go to the homeowner and go, I don't care.
They may.
But I see what you're saying. It may prompt them, depending on certain things. We have to be careful about harassment.
I agree.
Things like that. So it's touchy. That's why this has always been a tough situation.
Yeah, it's very frustrating for the person living next to it or it's tough. Anybody else have any great ideas?
Like that idea, just because although they're not responsible for that, it gives them some type of notice of what's going on, but they're not gonna be charged. They're just gonna get placed with while they go to school, and their parents will pay for it. I think they get that notice, that it's gonna start some kind of activity to make them go twice.
Right. And, you know, that can come from zoning. It can come from us, delivered from some, you know, the city attorney, zoning. That part of legal mind, I do not know. That is up to y'all.
Okay.
But that is a good idea. I agree with you. I think they know they're being looked at, to be honest with you right now. But
I'll take an action item to follow up on who would draft and deliver said letter.
Usually comes from a complaint.
we have a complaint on this. Well,
That's where it first starts.
Written report complaint. we do that.
Okay, separate.
Yeah, I see. Sure. Yeah, it's the only one I know of. Otherwise, we said,
Well, because if they're my nation, you should, right? Because if they're all
I don't
working
know.
on
I have not seen anybody else receiving information.
I will say, Carlos, we've had a couple of times this has happened in Ward 4, like it's mostly been Sanford students. There's a house on Salter that has had multiple calls and complaints about it, and they've gone out and Scott, I know Scott, that was when Scott was still with the police department, and he went out there several times. And then there was a house on Salter View, same thing. He went out there multiple times, and Crest Lane, so multiple, and every time it was a landlord who lived. Yeah.
I'm just saying, maybe there's something that we can even use the website for, right? If there is a complaint that someone makes, right, that this could create an action item with the letter sent out. Potential violation.
So we are inbounding those requests via the website now, so someone can go in and or we're in the process of it. Brian and I discussed the context. Basically, the person inbounding it would have a couple of check boxes where they would have to acknowledge that while you're submitting this complaint, at some point to further press it along, you're going to have to issue some sort of request to the police department. You will potentially have to show up in the court to let them know, don't just put the complaint on the website and expect us to handle it, that there is, you know, some engagement on your part to get this to be processed through.
It's similar to the traffic comment.
Right.
Of the system.
All
Is
right.
there any vetting of people that when they become renters, that you own a house, you can just arbitrarily ipso facto take their rental?
I think so.
Okay.
Police day.
I'm not asking, I'm just asking a simple question. If that is something we do, I had no idea the answer until now, so now I know.
All right, if there's no further discussion on this item, I will carry it over for letter, and then also I'll follow Brian on the stuff they added to the website. All right, 040122, request to add public parking at the old Homewood Police Station on 29th Avenue South in the Bay. Councilor Andrews and Sue Graffos.
Yes, JJ and I just talked, and the police department needs to price moving the fuel pickup there. Yeah. I think we need to say something.
Just in case they don't, we're waiting on the price.
So, yeah,
It may be more than they got.
okay, so we may need to, so, okay, so should we pass this on to finance? Councilor?
Yeah, that was just gonna say, if we agreed, if we need that park, let's go ahead and send it to finance for funding.
Judge report.
Okay, this time I'll entertain a motion to recommend sending this item to the Finance Committee for a further report from the Chief of Staff and an amount that it costs. No, Council, if you like the record that Councilor Wolverton has arrived. All right, so we have a motion from Councilor Wolverton. Second from Councilor Harden. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. This item goes to Finance 5-0.
So y'all recommended the parking, y'all just now trying to do the funding, is that right?
Correct.
The motion's pretty.
Yeah. 220122, request for consideration of Forest Brook traffic calming project on Forest Brook Drive, Forest Brook Circle to West Oxmoor Road via Shades Glen Drive and Elfrist Drive. Councilors Alman and Wolverton.
So we've had several traffic studies. I think Dale and Randy have those that have been done over the last 12 to 15 months, something like that. That showed some pretty substantial issues through that. We had originally talked about trying to wrap this item up into the design for sidewalks, and I wasn't here. I had to go 2 weeks ago. This was brought up under ED. So maybe somebody else can explain why this part in particular was teased out. I mean, I guess I understand that this is a public safety item. The idea originally was that we were going to kind of holistically have the areas that we were looking for sidewalks in, or what other traffic control measures or public safety measures could be taken.
Yeah, I think the idea was just logistics of where the money was coming from and things like that. I think they will still, communicate with each other in terms of the design. But I think in order to get the sidewalks moving, which may be a quicker process, we needed to separate the two out, was what the thought process was.
And I think, I remember discussing, the idea was that, that it would help at least get some sort of implementation of traffic control or safety measures in place as well. When the design was being done. So I guess I just wanted to make sure we weren't delaying that process as well, because that's a fairly immediate need and also almost probably more. More pressing issue, but I think it's something that could potentially be implemented quicker than sidewalks.
And it may be, but I agree with you that they need to, hopefully they will, once they're both done, they'll be in concert with each other and it should be designed that way, but they may be on two different timetables, like we're talking about.
So we can certainly have make sure at least two sections along the roads mentioned here that were studies that showed significant issues with traffic and volume. Speed primarily, but more to some sort of process of looking through the appendix of our traffic policy. What we wanted to do there. So
I didn't see anybody jumping up to provide a traffic study. I'm not familiar with it, just off the top of my head.
yeah, there were several that were done, so we can certainly carry it over to the committee.
Okay.
But to pull those, like I said, I want to hear last week, just piece down. So
All right, seeing no objections, or if there are no objections, we'll carry over 220122. 230122, request for consideration of traffic calming measures along South Forest Drive. Councilor Sims.
Thank you. So this is in response to a request that came in via the portal where a resident had asked for traffic calming considerations due to speeding along South Forest. There was a traffic study done back on April 6, 2021 for 72 hours. The average speed of that study found that it was 28 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. However, the 85th percentile was 35 miles per hour. So our policy says if the speed of the 85th percentile is over 5 to 10 miles per hour, then physical slowing measures may be considered. So that's really where the discussion progressed, to go back to the residents and ask them if they wanted to go through the petition process for physical improvements to be considered. That petition letter was sent to the residents back on May 25th. In the summer, the residents completed that petition with meeting the requisite of 66% or more signing that, as far as 66% of the residents along that street segment who were identified by, our municipal department as people who this directly pertains to, their property being adjacent to the segment being considered and studied. So that information was received in following the process, in follow-up to the petition process being completed. There were meetings with Kale and also other counselors. Counselor Smith and I met with Kale at one point. Also, Counselor Jones and I met as we were talking about another street segment as well. And so we continue to talk about options such as enforcement and potential considerations for physical measures. So enforcement wise, there was a follow-up. Homewood Police went out between September 15th and October 15th and actually didn't report any violations. They did not hand out any tickets during that time frame. So that's a little bit in contrast to what the study said. But still, the residents have continued to note that speeding is a concern. So we continue the discussion as for possible solutions. I'm meeting with Kale. He has a rendering, which is now up, which shows some potential placements of interventions. We talked about striping as well as placement of chicanes as an option for traffic calming along the segment. This is an example of a pop-up chicane where basically, before, say, the city wanted to invest into a permanent physical improvement to alter the flow of traffic and attempt to slow it down and calm traffic, we can actually do a temporary intervention and see the impact it has with pre and post data on speeds along the segment. And if residents and the city decided to do something permanent, then we could invest, the funding at that time as we go through the budgeting process. But this would be an awareness opportunity for residents, as well as just a chance to see if this would have any impact. So that's my overview of the situation. Kale, did you have anything you want to add? And thanks for all your time and looking at this. Basically, we're talking about the segment from towards the top at the circle and on South Forest, where the pedestrian bridge is over Griffin there, down to Salter, looking at different opportunities to possibly slow traffic in those straightaways. Thankfully, traffic is slowed some by the on-street parking when it's present. So what we want to do is really, have some type of way to replicate that with these physical barriers, physical traffic calming measures, when cars are not as present along certain sections of South Forest.
I'll add to that, Counselor. The first thing I heard about traffic calming measures in Homewood is that speed tables and speed humps are like, so that's kind of how we started here. And what we did here was we identify areas along the route where we get folks to park and where we don't allow them to park. So right now you might pull up to it in front of your house, but in 6 months, if we strike it like this, you're not going to park there. So it's probably going to make some people along this route not very happy because they can't park where they're used to parking. But I think that this will slow traffic. If you drive down South Forest right now, there are probably cars on both sides of the road, and the traffic is moving pretty slowly. But if no cars are on the road, it's such a straight, flat road. The chicanes would help. We can do anything. We can strike them like what I show, or we can do some pop-up measures like what Brian had on the. Yeah, I mean, this looks kind of silly, but
pop-up chicane.
Yeah, I mean, this would just be something that, that somebody could, that our public works guys could put out, and we could spend $100 on wattles and plants and cones and, you know, put these out for a few weeks and see what kind of reaction we got.
Somebody out in play.
My first thought.
Stay long. They'd be quickly.
So this is, you know, this is certainly a cheap option, just to see if it works and to see what kind of feedback we get.
And I think part of this discussion too is, you know, we have a process in place to review these things. And so really, you know, at this point, it's part of it is reviewing and finding an appropriate way to report back to the residents to initiate the request and go through the petitions. And then part of it is also considering, you know, what is appropriate and feasible to do. And that's why the, you know, temporary intervention is a consideration, because I think that we're trying to learn still what are our options for physical traffic calming other than the standard speed table, speed hump, which is less than desirable to say the least. And also once counselors are finished too, I think we may have a resident here too, if that's permissible, for anything to be said. Thanks.
Just a thought, you know, possibly putting up the signs to tell them how fast they're going.
Oh, it's been out there
The
for,
trailer's out there.
the trailer's out
Okay,
there
the
for,
trailer's been out there. for
Yeah.
permanent.
oh, the permanent, the boot, yeah.
Put out ones that we've done on Oak Road. I think someplace on Salter also.
Wellington.
That's just a thought, but you know, it does remind some people, and when other people see that they see how fast you're going, sometimes they get conscious, will slow down. That's just a thought there.
Yeah, I'm with you, Kale. I think probably starting with something a little less permanent at the beginning, because I've already had people call me and say, don't put those things in front of my house.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and because the problem is there's Ward 3 on one side, Ward 4 on the other. And I've had several people from our side of the street call and say, do not put a speed hump or a sign or a whatever in front of my yard,
Oh, yeah.
in front of my house.
Pastor John, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, this is kind of the challenging because it's so close. I mean, 7 miles an hour is 80 percentile, but we're always gonna have challenges where people right now are parked on both sides of streets and you can't go very fast right now. My thought would be maybe we try some of those measures in the circle, since that would not affect parking, and see if that would affect the speed. I just, you know, something that would, maybe people are coming through there. And
I would think they're going faster on the straightaway than the circle.
okay, well, I guess all I'm saying,
Yeah.
I agree with you, Ms. Smith, that it's, people get really angry when you put up a thing like that in front of their house, and they can't park in front of their house anymore. A lot of them don't have driveways.
Yeah, a lot
on.
of people on the street.
So I don't know, it's a struggle, but anything we can put, I think the double yellow helps in the middle, that slows people down. So maybe try some of that, but I'm concerned about the other.
Did I hear someone else speak up? Yeah. Okay. Nobody else in the wants to speak? Yeah. If you will step up to the table and someone let her sign in, basically name and address. That's all you really need.
Also, the trailer's not working anymore. It stopped working yesterday, so it's not picking up.
Need to put another battery in there.
I'll email Randy right now.
Sure.
You take care of it.
While she's signing in, Councilor Walker's gonna have something you'd like to add.
I just have a quick clarifying question. So I know Councilor Sessions mentioned that they have the threshold for greater than 50% of residents signing on for some sort of measure to be taken. To Barry's point, what section of the road do they live in? Are we just talking about the section displayed or further up as well?
This is a great.
Where were those people gathered from?
The petition was the entire street from the circle all the way to Salter. 'Cause we went door to door myself.
And this is part of the process too, as we go through this. I mean, for me, it's been a learning lesson of like, you know, the way the process works. So that list is the list provided by, you know, by us. So they're doing what we're asking them to in going and getting 66% of those residents. And it may be that a more particular segment is more interested in this than another segment. But also, I think that if we have a temporary intervention and like public input through it, that it'll also help us inform before anything actually happens permanently.
Yeah, thank you. And so I'm Casey O'Keefe. I live on South Forest, 572. Actually, the traffic trailer's close to my house, and I routinely watch people hit 38, 40 on it on a regular basis. They don't care that it says 25. We get speeding on
Trying to get their speed up.
right. Yeah, I think they try to see how fast they.
Is that during the day?
It's so I did see the police officer there in the mornings. We don't have a lot of our speeding happening in the mornings. It's often that rush hour time frame or in the evenings, which is actually more dangerous for the children who are playing in the street because they're home, the sun's setting, and that's when we're seeing a lot of that speeding happening is in that like 4 to 7 time frame. A lot of teenagers too are speeding on our street. So with that being said, like there are a lot of issues. I understand that a lot of people parking on the street. That caused my daughter personally to almost be hit by a vehicle because she ran behind a car that was parked and somebody was speeding and slammed on their brakes. With the traffic study, 900 cars on average travel on South Forest every day. So it is being used as a cut through for folks who don't want the stop signs on Broadway and don't want to deal with some of the other traffic calming measures because of Griffin Creek and having to go around. But we only got one no from a resident. There were some that didn't sign because they weren't there. But just for context, we only had one person who said no to traffic calming. There are 30 elementary age students approximately that live on the street that walk to and from school or are riding their bikes. So it does affect a lot of us. And there are, I think, 5 people on Zoom right now, they said, and 3 of them are residents who are interested in what's going on. So we don't know what kind of traffic calming we would want as, you know, whether that's a chicane or speed bumps or whatever it is that we're doing, but we do know it is a problem. A ball, you know, all the hills you have, balls routinely are rolling into the street because of, I don't know if you all are familiar with the street, but there's those kind of houses up on the hill. And so often children are running into the street to grab items because of all the kind of fluctuations and variations. So I actually just moved here a little over 1.5 years ago from another state and was so excited that my kids could play outside and ride bikes because we'd never lived in a neighborhood like that. And I actually don't let my kids ride bikes in the street because it's gotten really scary. I've seen people go 50 or 60 a couple times. If there aren't cars parked on the street, they just take off. Like I said, it's often teenagers, but you know. So anyway, I'm here just representing everybody, and you know, I do think too the trailer is facing one direction. I see a lot of people speeding the other direction. So just maybe even finding a place to put it. I know it's harder because of where it is. It's up against kind of a embankment. And so that's easy because you're not messing with people's parking. But a lot of people are speeding going to Salter instead of going up to it.
I wonder if moving it over to the little green space there behind.
The gazebo area.
Yeah, because that's just an empty, there's more space there maybe.
The only issue is a ton of people park there when they go to
Yes,
so
yeah, I
that could
did
affect
notice that the other
parking.
night too.
That could affect parking,
Yes.
but I do think more people I see speeding the other direction than going
Thank you.
towards. So,
We'll definitely
Thank
get that.
you.
We'll definitely get that battery fixed. We'll get that battery fixed.
yeah,
That'll be
I
number one
appreciate it.
job.
Thank you, thank you. And yeah, like I said, anything would be better than nothing because it's just kind of a mess right now. So thank you.
Sure. Firsthand. Is there anybody else that comes here? Are you here to speak to this item? Are you here to speak to this item?
No, he's here for something on the paperwork.
Gotcha. Sorry, I saw you standing. I thought you meant something.
My back, I need to stand.
No worries. I just want to make sure we weren't skipping over you. Is there anybody else that has something they want to add to this one? Okay, well, I will look to the words, multiple words on the street for a recommendation.
See that, so that's where the speed sign currently is right there in front of that
Recommendation.
hill that goes up to this house. Is not that street.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we've made all of our recommendations. I feel like we've been heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
As to which ones you want to do.
Question. So if we put the chicanes, no matter where we put something, it's gonna affect the river. You know, wherever we put them, those folks are gonna want it there. They're gonna want it down if they're laid out. But so we're gonna have to give, you know, in order to make it stop, we gotta have something that everybody's not gonna like. In order for it to slow down. Right, right. So, and, you know, the only thing that's not going to affect parking would be something like the speed bump or the, what do you call the bump?
Speed tables, we're not doing it. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. We're not.
You're talking
I
about the
will never
rumble
vote for that.
strips?
Oh, rumble strip? Oh, my
Yeah,
gosh.
the
You wanna
rumble
get-
strips will cause more issues with the residents because they're so noisy.
They're so loud.
Okay.
You would
But
never build
my
a slip.
point Is something's gotta go in order for us to slow the traffic down and not everybody's gonna like what we do.
You're correct about that.
Yes,
So
but I'm not with
just
that.
wondering, you know, will the strips be better? Is there gonna be a slowing pump? You know, something's gotta be put there and the chicanes are gonna take away somebody's parking in front of it.
So I would just offer my personal opinion.
Yeah.
The rumble strips are going to disturb more people than anything because they're going to make noise for everybody. And if someone comes through there at 2 a.m, it's going to wake everybody up. So those would be the most intrusive, I would think. We've talked about speed humps and speed bumps and tables and whatever. Many times that slows down the emergency vehicles. It causes wear and tear on them. To me, if you're judging it on intrusiveness, the chicanes are the least intrusive measure. And it's going to, with regard to the neighborhood as a whole, it may be more intrusive with regard to one person, but I don't know how you get out of that.
Right.
So, but it would be the least intrusive to the neighborhood as a whole.
Again, I'm gonna reiterate my opinion, that we start with something less permanent. So we can get reactions from people. So A, see if it works, see if it slows people down. B, make sure we've got them in the right place, because if they're not in the right place, we might need to move them somewhere else. But if the suggestion for something less permanent at this point, so that we can figure everything out, and like Nick said, get some data that supports before and after whether it's actually doing the job. And I do think Ben's point about maybe putting some of the flashing signs might not be a bad idea. It's worked on Wellington, it's worked on Hollywood, it's worked on Sullivan.
Do it both directions.
Yeah, and that would cover both directions, but I think we start with something more
Completely agree. Whatever it is, it makes sense to do it temporary and get some data to see if it's working. Because if it's not, there's no point in doing it. Let's figure out something else.
Yeah.
And we can, because again, I'm not aware of doing something temporary like this previously. So we can have opportunities where, maybe there's a QR code that can be scanned. So somebody can scan it and find out the purpose of why it's there, and also provide feedback or a link. But, we can do something where, we get input and use it as at least an awareness opportunity. And maybe it's, people hate it, but at least we've had a conversation about it.
Yeah.
And when we go through these processes of complaints through the portal and petitions, we've had a conversation initiated and awareness is increased.
So I'll add, just on your comment about the rumble strips, Randy, I've aggressively pursued them with Randy for Manhattan, because Manhattan often has similar issues, but it's gotten better. And Randy was like, you don't know what you're doing, just don't. It was like, you're setting yourself up for so just we had a couple places before we ended up taking it out.
Well, the chicanes do, I'll say this, there was some similar stuff done years and years ago on some roads. There's some good and bad, like anything else. You'll find that certain people will try to take them at speed, not on a racetrack.
Yeah.
You'll find the brake noise and acceleration noise when you leave those areas, affecting the people that live there. Which would happen if you did a rumble strip or a bump. So the people, just take that into account. The people right there are really going to be affected. by all sorts of stuff.
The only thing I was gonna add was that I haven't been on the street quite a bit running, and often, usually at dusk, people do have a tendency, especially in the further south you get, closer to it's all crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a sidewalk runner, but
Can I make one more comment?
yes,
after you finish?
absolutely. I'm done. I was just gonna give a recommendation of mine.
One thing, I'm glad we have the sidewalk, so that's helpful. But if we can use some common sense on where we put those, it seemed like when you were going down the road, Brian, you know, when you were cruising down the road, it was obvious to me, the best places would be where you have the houses way up here, and then there aren't gonna be cars parked down there. It's too far probably to walk. You know, there were the more wooded areas, it
And
seemed like.
that's where the trailer currently is right there. in
And like,
front
yeah,
of
like
that street.
right in there would be,
That's where,
would be the-
that's where it is.
what I'm saying is that's where we should put.
Or do
Okay.
chicane or something.
Well, yeah,
Right there.
there, where we know people are not gonna be parking.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just saying, if we can
That's a
use
good
a
point.
little.
They're
So
gonna
the
be
second-
living on the street, so it would help with slowing
Yeah.
it down
Yeah.
because nobody can.
Yeah,
And
right.
most of those houses right there in that stretch do have driveways, so they don't need to park on the street as much as some of the houses that are further.
And that's kind of where that road diet.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
That's
That's all I
exactly
had.
where we got it drawn on the little map. We
Way
use
ahead of
common sense sometimes.
Give me that copy of that.
Luck of the dark. Is that what that was? Luck of the dark.
Yeah. that's right.
The only other location Brian had it up a minute ago that I thought might be viable is closer to that park, because those houses across, it shows 901 on Google Maps. They also go up instead of high, so they don't park on the street. But so we at least have two locations. So is their recommendation for temporary chicanes, then collection of data after installation?
So the other one, since we're talking about specific locations, is near the sidewalk where you walk over the bridge.
That's right.
That's right there next to that little green space, yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's what he was talking about, right there next to that little green space.
In lieu of a specific recommendation for a location, let's just say that the temporary chicane is the preferred solution that we'll pursue. Is it everybody good with that, with ordinance 3 and 4?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm just curious, had anything like this in a permanent form been priced out? I'm just pricing it.
No.
Berkeley can build that. Yeah, that's right.
Plant down into the.
I just need to check the neighbors. the Flower bed over
All right, so the next committee can move along. Is there a motion on the table? Is there a motion
For a temporary chicane.
for a temporary chicane location TBD?
I'll make a motion that we have a temporary chicane put along South Forest Drive.
Council Card made the motion for a temporary chicane along South Forest Drive, location TBD. Council Robertson seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. That motion carries.
You don't want to drop your speed.
A temporary chicane style like depicted in the picture. Yeah, I wouldn't think this is an ordinance, right? Right, okay. Yeah, make sure that reads the motion for a temporary chicane.
I said motion for a temporary chicane location to be determined, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
What about 85 miles an hour? Or do you need a reduction in speed in the area temporarily also approaching?
Oh, you're saying,
Because it's because you need to slow your speed.
yeah, you're saying add sign, Randy should add signage that says slow speed ahead or something like that.
You know, some sort of verbiage, because I'm sure it's not gonna be taken at 25 miles an hour in that chicane. There's something dry.
Yeah,
So,
I think that'll be part of the temporary setup,
And I
just
didn't
add signage, right?
y'all had to vote,
Reduce the speed limit.
that's my point.
Yeah, I wouldn't say,
That becomes an
Something in the road that
Yeah.
says slow.
Did you just say slow speed ahead instead of actually changing
to speak.
Yeah, that's up to y'all. That's all I'm bringing up.
That's just a warning. That's
Yeah.
not something to issue a citation.
No.
You can't issue any citations.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Okay.
But maybe if it says slow speed ahead, they'll think there's police sitting up there ready to pull them over. and slow down.
That's why I said, well, the engineers put in temporary traffic calming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, leave it more broad.
Sounds good. Aerial surveillance above.
This area is being patrolled by a helicopter.
Okay, so 260122 moves to council 5-0. And I believe with that, public safety is
What
adjourned.
about 26?
260122.
Oh, I skipped Ashwood. I'm sorry. I was, my bad. I was making notes all over the place and I skipped down below. All right. 260122, public hearing set for February 28th, 2022 at 6 p.m. for consideration of condemnation of the dwelling structure at 16 Eddywood, Ashwood Lane, Wyatt Pugh, Building Department.
We're not on that agenda
Yeah,
yet.
we haven't moved that agenda yet. Oh, we're still in public safety.
Yeah, yeah. I told you that's the last meeting. We have another meeting after this one before that.
Do you want to give a report on this item?
We don't know.
We don't know.
You probably have
I kept mine at least.
Yeah.
15 minutes at least.
Yeah.
Andy tried.
Yeah, how long it has to go? 10 days before. Yeah, we're.
I don't think he's paid his, what I saw, his property tax for a long time.
Can we go and get a report from Mr. Pugh on his property?
Yes. September, the housing code of 84, recommended that this house, this property be sent on to the city council for a discussion about condemnation. It's actually an attached dwelling unit, but the owners were given some opportunities and warnings, and discussions about taking care of the maintenance, which is dipped to a level of what we consider dangerous. The deck is about to fall off the back. There are holes in the structure itself. The roof's got to leak. Actually, going under the residential building. Sorry, can't you go in under the residential? No, not without owner permission. What's the places? No.
We can't demolish it because it's a townhouse in the middle, right? So how do you-
I don't know. When I brought this up to you a while back, it seemed like the only course forward was just to simply take it to council, get a recommendation to demolish it, not demolish it, condemn it. And that's, I mean, what else can the city do? The city can't go in and fix it up. Unless it's a fire or public safety. We're all certificate of occupancy.
Is it creating a problem for people on each side?
It will,
Yeah.
if it hasn't already.
Especially if there's water.
So some background, Councilor Gear and the mayor, we all went and looked at this last year, right up in probably November. Yeah, at some point. And it's bad because the concern of the neighbors is that the structure is going to continue to deteriorate and it's letting either animals into their property now or it's going to continue the deterioration onto their property because of his lack of maintenance. And you can see it. I mean, like you said, the deck's falling off, the chimney's about, or the fireplace is about to fall off.
But once you condemn it, what does that lead you to? Where does that lead you?
I think there needs to be a civil, there needs to be civil action.
That was my recommendation.
Association.
There's no association, that's the
There's
problem.
no association.
So they can't take any action.
No association.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't want this property.
You can't, there's nothing you can put on the lien if there's no call. I mean, we can condemn it, but
I guess the only question I would have would be, would the condemnation provide any ammunition to someone who did pursue a lawsuit?
There will be.
Yeah.
I just looked he hasn't paid his property taxes in several years, it looks like, so tell me. he-
I think condemning it's like a very good. I agree.
He may be off. My information says.
Our recommendation to the plaintiffs, the neighbors, was that it was a civil matter that they would need to pursue in the civil court. However, the only thing I figure the city can, as far as the city can go, is how far we need to go. One thing I'm gonna do is bring the city council
If it,
before a public hearing. You all condemn it.
if it needs to be condemned, we ought to condemn it and we'll, that'll help something. And then we'll see what we can do from that point forward.
So if I might, one point of clarification, you said that, did the Housing Code Abatement Board actually vote this out?
Yes.
They did vote it in the affirmative. Okay, I didn't catch that.
When did they vote? I was
September.
I'm sorry, I think it was the September meeting.
5-0.
I'll prepare that for you next.
Okay.
2 or 3-0.
This state statute is an unsafe building. So what it provides for it to be demolished. This is not on all fours with this circumstance. We'll have to try to get that.
Okay. You said I just have to publish it one time, 10 days before the 28th.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to send out without recommendation pending the public hearing.
Okay.
Second.
Uh, Counselor Jones and Counselor Mills, so the motion in the second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 5-0. Okay, public safety is now adjourned.